Hey folks, it's David. Just here for a little bit more messing around with archery. It's been a while since I've done anything like this, but my favourite bow broke this week. While that's obviously very gutting, it gives me a chance to do some other stuff, stupider stuff that I wouldn't really have normally dared do with that bow. So this is an old one I've dug out of the shed. £60 at 30-inch draw, 62-inch Samick. Anyway, you can see that I've added an additional arrow rest above the shelf rest and some extra brass knocking points, and what that means is that I can knock 2 arrows at once, one above the other. It's really dumb, but I just wanted to show you how that can be used to make some really cool trick shots, and also some of the pros and cons of shooting 2 arrows at once. So, without further ado, the thing about doing this, and you might be able to see it, if I draw the bow in front of you, is that the arrows, obviously they're not at the same position on the string, so when I draw the string back, the top arrow is a little bit further forward. It's going to get slightly less of the force than the bottom arrow. Also, with the nature of these rests, it's ever so slightly angled differently, which naturally is terrible if you want them to go both in the same place. But for trick shooting, it's kind of handy, because the one at the top is going to go slightly to one side and it's going to drop slightly. So if you judge your distance right, you can place 2 targets side by side and the arrows will land at the same height, certain distance apart. I'll show you what I mean. So this is my setup. I've got 2 targets down that end side by side. I'm going to stand somewhere over here and I'm going to try and make a shot aiming at the right hand target. Sorry, just got to prop the phone up and we'll see what happens. Can you see me? And again. If I take a steep... Don't know if you can see this. So, both of those. So the first shot was this one and this one. Second was this one and this one. I'll do a couple more of them and I'll sort of see what you can do. Alright, so a little bit of faffing around later with direction of flights, angles of targets and so on. I've staggered one of them a little bit forward of the other. We have one flight with the fletching facing outwards. Don't know if you can see that. The other one facing in to try and maximise like the horizontal spread between the 2 arrows, and hopefully this will do what it did last time. And there you have it. 2 arrows, 1 shot, and they're not quite dead centre, but we've got 1 in this target and 1 in this target. It's not exactly impossible, but it's a bit of a faff. So that took me best part of 10 minutes, I guess, faffing around, moving targets, trying to make them next to each other. I could probably get it more accurate for the sake of doing some kind of cool trick shot, maybe shooting 2 bottles at once sort of thing. I might have a mess with that in the future, but the point is, compared with what you see a lot of the time in films, it's not going to work. If you've got 2 enemies rushing at you, they're both moving, adding an extra arrow on the string, the odds of hitting both of them, unless they're the right distance apart and the right distance away, it's not going to happen. At least not if you're shooting them apart like that. But there is another way. So previously, I had 1 arrow on the bottom, knocked like so, and 1 knocked, a little bit further up, like so. But if I take the top one and knock it here, suddenly the arrows are right next to each other. There's no longer that gap on the string. And if I shoot them this time, that's right. Come have a look. So, this time, they're both fairly close to each other on the target here. So, at this distance, I could have put both of those arrows into the same person, in theory, or the same boar, or the same dragon, or whatever it is you want to fight in your fantasy setting. And they'd both be doing some damage. Now, here's the thing. These 2 arrows have gone into this target, and they've stuck out of the back about the distance of one of my fingers. So, you get yay much penetration when you shoot 2 at once. Now compare that with only shooting 1 arrow. So here we are back at the target, and we've got this one and this one from my 2 arrow attempt, and then this one and this one happened when I shot 1 arrow at a time. And if you look at the back, 2 arrows, they're going, yeah, one finger, and the other one is doing 1, 2, almost 3 times that amount of penetration. Yeah, enough penetration, funny word. The reason for this, obviously, is that your bow, doesn't matter how many, like, what you do with that bow, you can try and pull it a little bit further back or whatever, but it's still something going to store as much energy as that bow stores. So you stick 2 arrows on it, that energy is going to be split between 2 arrows instead of 1. So when you see people in their films, not only are they going to struggle to hit 2 targets at once, but even if they're aiming at the same target, and they might stand a pretty good chance of hitting it if it's not too far away with both arrows, if that target's armoured or something, the amount of actual energy that impacts for each arrow is going to be less. There's a much higher chance of both arrows just pinging off the outside of that armour. But, and here's the but, if you are a medieval archer or a fantasy archer and you're shooting medieval fantasy arrows that aren't magic, like Hollywood kills in 1 hit arrows, they're only going to do as much damage as the surface area of the arrowhead that goes inside. Now, I'm only using target arrows here. There's the amount of the size of the actual hole that these arrows make is pretty minimal. If you were using medieval arrows with broad heads on, they're going to have like little blades on the side of them. They're going to do a bit more damage, but they're not instant kill things. They're gonna you're depending on hitting a vital organ, and you're depending especially on hitting a vital organ that will stop your enemy quickly. Now, if you're fighting a dragon, hypothetically, and that dragon's quite heavily armoured, you probably only want to shoot one arrow at a time at it, because you want to make sure those arrows hit. But if you're fighting something that you know your arrows are going to go through, and you want to stop it quickly, there is an argument that sticking both of those arrows on at once, if you know they're both going to penetrate, is going to help you to stop it faster, because you're going to make twice as many holes, you're going to do twice as much damage, there's a twice as high a chance that you're going to hit something important and bring it down, or at least you might bring it down in half the time. That said, it all depends on how quick you are. If I'm using 2 arrows at once, it takes me more than twice as long to knock both of those arrows properly and aim than it does for me to just draw another arrow quickly, knock it on and shoot. So in the middle of a battle, it's never going to be worth, considering the fact that you're going to lose that amount of energy and that you're going to lose some time. It's never going to be worth shooting 2 arrows at once. But at the start of a battle, you want to open powerfully. If someone's not seen you come in and they're not that far away and you're hidden around a rock and you're Legolas or someone that can shoot like a really powerful bow really accurately, stick both of them on. See what it's going to do. Like in Lord of the Rings when he stood on top of that troll's head and he sticks 2 arrows on. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. He's close enough that pretty much all the energy is going to go straight in there. He's an elf. It's definitely going to go through the skull, so twice as many arrows, twice as good. Anyway, that is just a little bit of me messing around and thinking too much about the kind of stuff that you see in films and TV. I hope you found it fun, or at the very least interesting. And if you've not, sorry. Yes. You have no idea how long that took.